What is up, you guys? Welcome back to school, but do not worry, everything is cool. I am, of course, your host, Jalissa, and I'm here with the boys, Steve and Brandon. Say what's up, you guys.
What's up?
How are y'all doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good.
That's good. That's good. You know me, I'm in my women era, doing my things. What's so funny, Steve?
You are her.
I am her. I'm Hermithy.
Hermithy? Yeah, you're Hermithy.
It's perfect because it's Kobe Day.
Yeah, it is Kobe Day.
Yeah, for those of you who are listening, you probably don't know this because we always record like a week before.
Yeah, it's Kobe Day on the day we're filming this, but
Yeah.
it'll be a week after.
Should we expose that? Is that dangerous?
How is it dangerous?
I don't know.
We say it like every episode.
I don't know. Do you think witches are like? You never heard of that where they can like cast
Have you
spells?
seen that guy who on TikTok? Not recently, a while ago though, where he invited witches to curse him.
Yeah.
So he would like send them hair and nails and shit, and nothing ever
To
worked.
curse him, like
Yeah.
him himself.
Yeah, because he's like, I don't believe in that bullshit. So he'd be like, curse me.
You haven't heard of
And
that?
it actually happened?
Well, no, nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
Well, he sent them like hair. He sent them everything they needed,
Yeah.
and nothing happened. But then the excuse was that somebody was casting a protection spell on him.
I'm dead.
So he was being protected. But yeah,
Yeah. People were saying when you're so far in the delusion, you come up with anything to keep it up. I don't know.
Wait,
It's-
what? Say again.
When you're really far in the delusion, you do anything to like rationalize your delusion.
Oh, I thought you meant like he was in delusion.
No.
I was like,
The people say the witches of TikTok are.
oh, what,
But yeah,
witch-
I
witch
saw
talk?
that.
It's
Yeah.
funny.
People said that they were casting like protection.
Would you ever
spells.
do that? Would you ever
Yeah,
invite a
fuck
witch
yeah,
to
bro.
curse?
Come on. And in fact, I invite everybody, every single person, me, my sister, and Brandon.
Oh,
curse
come
us.
on.
No.
Leave me out of it.
No.
I'm just kidding. Please don't. Don't worry. Another explanation I saw as to why he didn't get cursed is
Because you
because
didn't believe it.
yeah, it's because he didn't believe it. So his spiritual wall was so strong that it didn't affect him.
So it's not true, essentially.
It's just not true. Yeah.
Damn.
But
Y'all don't believe in curses?
Yeah, I think I do, but I think not on that level. Like the Griffith Park thing, that kind of stuff.
really, so you believe in curses?
I guess I'm more inclined to buy it in those type of settings.
What do you mean by the Griffith Park
Well,
thing?
tell me again what that
how-
was.
Griffith Park, how it's like cursed. You've never heard of that either? Really? They originally like stole land from Native Americans, so the Native Americans put a curse on the land. So the land was like it saw like no profit and I think the owners had got like really sick and they eventually had to sell it. But the owners died anyways. And I think only recently did they like lift the curse. Obviously this is all just going based off memory, but
Yeah.
it was something along those
Oh,
lines.
is that where like the...
You know what?
Because there's like a statue, no, up there?
Yeah, the guy,
like,
Mr. Griffith,
Yeah.
Mr.
Mr.
Park,
Griffith?
Mr.
Is that
Park?
really his
Mr.
name?
Park.
Mr. Griffith Park.
I
Yeah.
feel like, I think I remember, I don't know, I think I did hear about it somewhere because it does sound familiar because it was like they weren't getting anything, so they sold it to the guy who's the statue now, right?
I thought it. I
Yeah,
forget.
look,
but-
so it's right
okay.
here. 150 years of misfortune in L.A. Griffiths Park. A curse, ghosts, and now a haunting. It says the curse of Griffith Park. Okay, so it says that in 1863, Don Antonio, my bad. Please forgive me. Antonio Feliz
Antonio.
died of smallpox, leaving behind a surviving sister, Soledad. Wow, and his blind teenage niece, Donna. Oh, damn, this is pretty long. I don't know if you guys want to hear. The gist is that it's cursed, bro.
Yeah.
It is pretty cursed.
The gist is,
But it got
was-
lifted.
Well, the gist was that it was Native American land. He took it, and the natives cursed it, and then
Yeah.
it was all bunch of.
It's at 150 years of misfortune, bro. So
Yeah.
clearly there's something was going on.
Okay, but the point being, in those type of scenarios, I'm more inclined to believe a curse than like some random Joe Schmo like, oh, I did this on you, and now
Yeah.
you're
Oh yeah. You see, so to like reverse the curses, that like he donated the land to the city. He's like, I don't want this anymore.
yeah.
Yeah. So you could argue it's still possibly cursed because it's was stolen from the people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in those settings, yeah. Because isn't there, is it Hawaii? I forget what area, but like you're not allowed, you're not supposed, it's like a legend if you take like a stone or something.
Oh yeah, I heard.
It's like super bad luck until you return it. Shit like that.
Yeah.
I think.
you wouldn't fuck around with
I
that.
saw that in
Yeah.
I think it was Sister. I think they
Yeah.
like played on that.
That's when
where
you were,
they took a big rock and then they were all like fighting and stuff. They were like, oh, it's because it's like cursed or whatever. Why did you take a rock?
She was a young girl, bro. She immediately was like, holy fuck,
I
like
think it
curses
was
are
his
real.
sister. Yeah, because it's the one where they get stuck on a boat or something like that.
You don't,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't
You don't believe that? You're not into those
I don't really believe in any of those things, though.
Yeah.
Not really. Or maybe my spiritual energy
Your
is
wall
so
is too
high,
high.
that I know nothing can really affect me.
Okay.
Like,
That's
yeah.
fair.
I would. That's why we should go on ghost adventures, bro.
Yeah, I'm down. I'm not that.
Bro,
Even
they're
if
not real.
Even if there are ghosts, I've never heard of a ghost like killing somebody.
Yeah.
Like, what's he gonna do?
In the Lord, they can't. Did you hear that?
Really?
Yeah, that the non-living can never hurt the living.
Oh, so then what's there to be afraid
But
of?
what about getting possessed though?
But
those are
that's
demons, not ghosts.
Yeah.
Come on,
Okay,
bro.
but
You
what
don't know
if-
the Lord?
but what if
so
we
would you
encounter
would you
a
be
demon,
down
though?
to would you be down to demon hunt?
Yeah.
You'd
I
be down
would.
to demon hunt?
I'm not scared of shit, bro. I'm scared of people more than I'm scared of ghosts.
I'm scared of everything. So
I just I don't know.
Not valid.
I guess I'm always like, I wouldn't say I'm scared. It's just more like, what happens if I fuck around and I find out? Like, because you know how
Fuck around and find out.
because you know how like ghosts and canon can't hurt you. Like, what if I find out that they can? Like, what if
nobody has been alive to tell it.
like what if a demon possesses Steve and he kills me, and then in the canon, like on the story, it's like Steve just went crazy and killed me, but I'll know that it was a demon that killed me because it took over Steve.
Damn.
You
know,
wouldn't
shit like
dedicate
that.
your life to like trying to prove like that it was wrong. That like, bro.
Well, how
no.
could I? You killed me.
Dead. He's dead.
Oh, yeah, wait.
Yeah.
But you said then I'll know. So are you gonna become a ghost after, and then you wouldn't dedicate your ghost life to like?
I don't think I could, right?
So you
'Cause I
guys
mean,
don't think it's true when they're like, "Oh, ghosts come back because there's unfinished business,"
I think
or is it different from spirits?
No, because then wouldn't like all the like Spaniards and like conquistadors and people who committed genocide fucking would have died because of all the ghosts of all the native people that they killed?
But they can't harm anyone, but they do haunt them though.
I think that there's some scenarios where
Ghosts exist.
not ghosts exist, but weird things happen. But I don't think it's like, I think people kind of like throw it around willy nilly, you know?
You guys are gonna think I'm fucking insane,
What?
but I feel like I believe more in like interdimensional like shit like happening, like energies and stuff. Like I feel like I believe in that more than I believe.
But people
like,
say
in
that's the
ghosts.
same thing. Like it's just mislabeled. Like a ghost is just somebody in a different plane of existence.
Like Interstellar.
Well, the reason people say that is because like I've seen people talk about how when people die and come back, they talk about how wherever they went felt realer than this place. That it's the higher dimension or whatever bullshit, because when they were there, this life felt more like a dream than the one that they went to.
Wow.
So that's why people are like, oh, it's because when you die, you're just going to a different dimension. So some people say that ghosts and shit are mislabeled, that when you see a ghost, it's someone coming through to our dimension, you know?
But wouldn't you say that's what makes death more comforting? Which is like, because when you think of people that you lose, like you lose loved ones or you lose like pets, it's like, well, they don't cease to exist. They just go to a different plane of existence.
I just think it sounds like the same thing. Like it sounds like
they go to heaven.
so they go to a better place. Oh, wow, you know?
Honestly, that's true.
Yeah.
That's what I think about. Honestly, that's what I have like a lot of trouble with whenever
Yeah.
I think of like alternatives to the tradition of like believing in either like religion or
just any spirituality.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm like, it's just basically just
same
Christianity
thing, yeah.
disguised.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I don't believe in God, but I believe in something out there.
Something intelligent created us. Yeah. I don't believe in an afterlife, but I do think you go to a better place. You know?
Yeah,
Like, it's like,
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Do you think that's innately in us? Do you think we just like
To
want to believe in something?
I think
I think yes. I don't know, because I feel like a little bit of like our ancestors, but like they chose like things like there's like the god of the moon, the god of the sun, or like any of those. There's like different types of gods, and I think it's just, I think believing in that gives people just a lot more hope and like faith in just something. Like I feel like the word faith always does remind me of religion, but I think it is like just a feeling of to keep going, to find hope, and like to keep doing something. And I think that's why a lot of people fall into those things. Because, I mean, some people don't believe in, I guess, God, but they'll believe into, like, stones and stuff.
Astrology.
And, like, spiritual, yeah, and all that. And I feel like it's just a way to kind of, I don't know, get, like, a positive outcome of just things that happen in people's lives.
Yeah. Well, this is
Yeah.
kind of leading into my topics for this week.
Okay.
I'm gonna skip ahead to that one, but I guess going based off just like my head. Oh wait, I found it. Never mind. Is morality a product of nature, nurture, or a combination of both? Do you get what that means?
Morality?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it a product of, what did you say?
Is it a product of nature? So are we just like naturally, instinctively, like, do we understand morals, good and bad? Or is that a product of just our society, a nurture? Is that a product of this entire like place that we've grown up in? What do you think?
I think it's a bit of both. I think that people are social animals, right? So it benefits me to be kind to you because, like, in a nature setting, oh, if I have a broken leg, chances are you'll bring me some food and I'll survive. So there's an aspect of it that I think is nature, but I also think there's an aspect to it of nurture, you know, where it's like I could have been raised to be like, nah, you have a different skin color than me. I don't want your fucking help, you know? So I think it's a little bit of both, you know? Some people are born like, what is it, sociopaths? They can't even like relate to people, you know? So no matter how much you teach them, they're just always going to be fucked up to other people and other animals and shit like that. So I think it's a bit of both. You know, you have to have.
Yeah, because I think that also implies like nature versus nurture. Nurture can also be like a synonym for religion. Because I thought about this. What are the odds? Like, this is how you know the universe works in weird ways. Is that I was driving home recently and I was thinking about this. For some weird reason, I was thinking about, was religion created because people were afraid that if there wasn't like a big God or an afterlife to be afraid of like, if you do good or you do bad, you're going to be punished for being bad and you're going to be rewarded for being good. Was religion created so we could have this kind of like hold on people? So we're like, because if we don't have religion, then people are going to run amok and they're not going to give a fuck about morals. It'll be anarchy and chaos. But so it's weird that, weirdly enough, this question kind of relates to that. Because
People say that. I mean, people say that about Jesus, that the Romans made up Jesus to control the underclass people. I mean, I think there's aspects of religion that are designed to control people, for sure. Was it made with that intent? I don't know. Yeah. I think it's kind of like an intersectionality type thing where it's like it could have been both. Yeah. I think it just, you know, that's probably why it works.
I feel like sometimes it seems like there was a bit of good intention and then there was people who just used it or like, I guess, misused it in a way to like actually control people.
Yeah, a good amount of the Bible was rewritten too.
Yeah.
That's what people always say, theorize about how when the Black Plague came and killed most of the population, that they rewrote it to add in those like texts about homosexuality, about how homosexuality is bad because they wanted people to procreate. And obviously when you have a same gender relationship, you can't make a baby. So that's why they added that in the text, because they wanted people to be encouraged to have more babies because the population was so low. Yeah. And also because the population was so low, it was easier to rewrite the Bible because there was less people who were alive and in possession of one. This is the theory of that the Vatican has the original Bible like in their tombs, in their dungeons or whatever. But I mean, this is all just theory. But it sounds like
I think that's
a possibility.
I think that's interesting. If I was like immortal, like if I had Wolverine powers, I'd do shit like that. Like I'd become a priest or like a Benedict or whatever.
So you can work your way up?
Just to see like what they have hiding. And then because I'm immortal, you know? You wouldn't do that?
Yeah.
I feel like that'd be cool.
Well, because that is factually true. They do have like a vault and like
they have
catacomb.
They have stuff that you can't see. Like, yeah. And I always think that's cool. It's like, damn. I wonder what that hiding.
Yeah, I'm like, the forbidden. But what is it that they don't know?
They won't know. It's like Area 51.
But why are they hiding?
Yeah, it is like Area 51
Area
but for
51.
religion.
I guess they have like top secret, like they haven't dropped text yet.
Well, the whole moral thing, because I keep thinking about babies, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I always think about at least kids when they're like playing with dogs and how sometimes they kind of like, they throw them, right? Or like they pull their ears.
Yeah.
And I feel like as a baby, like, because I've seen a lot of babies do that, and I'm like, I don't think they like know that they're harming, I guess, the dog in a way. And I feel like that's why I feel like morals are kind of taught. At least this is what I was thinking in my head, because it's like they don't know that they're hurting the dog. Yeah. Because they're kind of like, oh, I'm just playing with it. In their head, they were just playing with it until you tell them like, no, you shouldn't do that because that's hurting the dog. And I feel like that's how it's I guess the right and the wrongs are kind of taught.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I think we just don't really know. I think we just kind of grow up knowing what is right and what is wrong by like our parents. At least that's how I saw it. When you asked the question, I kept thinking about like babies and like when they hurt dogs. Because I'm like, they don't know like whether they're harming the dog or like hurting it. They just know that they're just holding it or like playing with it or something.
Yeah.
And until you tell them like, no, like that's wrong, you're hurting the dog. And then that's when they kind of like are like, oh, so this is bad. If I do this, it's bad.
Yeah.
So then I shouldn't do this. And I think that's how just things are taught to us, you know?
I just find it interesting that if I think about man, when man first arrived in the world, whatever time that was, I think about that, about how, everything you said is true about how these little babies don't know that they're harming these animals. But what about it instinctually in people is like, okay, these animals clearly feel the same way I do, so I probably shouldn't cause something that'll give them pain. You know, I think that's what I find particularly interesting, because I don't think if I was born, I'm not saying that if I was born without morality, I'd be like a fucking asshole. But I just think that question in itself is kind of hard to answer, because I imagine it's something like in our genome of like, well,
I think it has a lot to do with the fact that people are social animals. Because I remember I was looking up like just this random question I was Googling about how, in theory, could you domesticate any animal? And the response I got was like, there's a lot of process. There's like a big process. Like the animal you have to domesticate has to be like a social animal. Like like dogs, right? Dogs are pack animals, or social animals. Yeah. And I think it has something to do with like, I don't know, I'm not a scientist or biologist, but I think it has something to do with social, like I'm benefiting by being kind to you, and I'm projecting my feelings onto you type thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like the same thing in the like in a nature setting. If a tiger bit me on the leg and I couldn't hunt anymore, chances are I've built a relationship with you and I've been kind to you that you'd feel like, hey, if I was in his position, I would hope that somebody would do something for me. So I think it's something like that, because I think you see it in animals and stuff. Because like I remember at the La Brea Tar Pits, they have like a segment, I think, where they find some animals like dire wolves and stuff. That's how they know that they're social, because they'll have, I think, like broken limbs that healed. So it implies that the like pack or the other animals helped it. Like they'd bring it food and they didn't leave it behind. Yeah. So I think stuff like that, you know? Yeah. I think it's just because people are smart, we can contemplate it. Yeah. That it's a little, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. That's interesting. Well, it makes me think that morality is then like, is in a way selfish, because it's kind of in a way like what's benefiting you in the long run. Because I mean, it is like I'm helping this creature out because possibly they could be an aid for me in the future. So that in itself contradicts like what we see as morality, where it's like it's selfless. You're supposed to do the greater good over you, like Spider-Man, right? Like if you have the power to do, with great power comes great responsibility.
Well, because I feel like some people also do, and I don't think it's bad, but I think some people do good things because they think they'll receive good back. You know, like whether it's through directly from the same person that they were good to, or just the universe is gonna gift them because they've been good. I don't think that's bad. I'm just like, oh, that's cool. Like
we're doing our best.
Be nice, you know.
I don't know. I think it's a complex thing, totally. But not, and I don't think it's unique to people either. Like I think about how whales help like divers all the time. Like I always thought it was fascinating that Joe Rogan had this episode of a guy who like I forget what you call him, but they swim like basically out in the ocean. They do like triathlons, like just of swimming, and that he talks about how like for like 2, 3, 4, 5 miles, a whale was following him, and that he was like looking to his guides, and the guides were like, "No, it's cool. The whale probably thinks you're like an injured seal, and he's trying to help you get to shore." Because he doesn't want you to get, because we're in shark territory. Yeah. Wow. And I think shit like that is like really interesting. Yeah. Because it's like, oh, so the whale can kind of like figure like, oh, this needs help. I can be a little, I can help out this animal, you know? And I feel like, I don't know, shit like that is interesting because you see that in a lot of animals.
It makes me hopeful, bro. It makes me hopeful that like greater good does exist even in the grand scheme of the universe. Whatever, like obviously that's what we call it because of our small, feeble ape brains or whatever. But like whatever the big concept of like good energy is, it makes me hopeful that it actually exists.
I feel like some people do it consciously, and then there's other people who don't. They're just really nice people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's beautiful, bro. But moving on to my second. So I wanted to give a backstory. I wanted to get deep, guys, for everybody listening and watching. So these are all very deep questions, which are very thought provoking. Play along at home, maybe.
Comment your responses.
Yeah, comment your responses. So this is the second question. Is it possible to have too much freedom?
Too much freedom?
Yeah. I'm thinking about anarchy and shit. Like how if the government didn't exist, if everybody could just do whatever they want. I was say, well, then it poses the question, like, do you think humans need rules and like regulations? I feel like can I go first? It's like a lot of ideas are coming up. I feel like inherently humans have like this strong desire, or I don't know if it's a gender thing, if it's a masculine thing, but I feel like a lot of men are almost naturally like pulled towards power. And I feel like for some reason, whenever I've seen governments usually are then like corrupted very easily. And I feel like I think of that. I think of like rules and regulations eventually get taken advantage of by whoever like works towards it, whoever like either like nefariously schemes their way to the top of the power, or, you know, like even if it's a peaceful leader, eventually people die and it's inherited by people who weren't in the same like spiritual realm as them. And I don't even mean that like in like like spirits and stuff, but I mean like people are born innately with things that make them unique, and sometimes what makes a leader unique is so good that only that person can ever really fill that shoes. And once whoever inherits his power, I think it's kind of harder for them to ever match that same status quo. So you get this like level of insecurity, and that's where like the corruption comes from and all these like bad things come from. I'm like totally going kind of on a tangent, but just running it back.
I think that...
Is it possible to have too much freedom?
I think that like freedom is kind of like an illusion in a way. Well, because like it reminds me of like what's that? It's BMO, right? Who sings "Time is an illusion that makes things make sense." You know, shit like that. I think in theory, right? Like there's nothing stopping anybody from doing anything other than other people. Like if I wanted, if the laws and the society that we built didn't exist, I could shoot Julie and nothing would happen. Because like a tiger could kill another tiger, and a gang of tigers aren't going to come after him. You know, they don't care. You know, I just think it's kind of one of those things where I think, because technically we are free. It's just that people decided to make rules to organize things. I just think that's probably the way the brain works for people, is that we need to categorize things and like set boundaries.
We need order.
So in essence, I feel like technically the answer is yes, right? Because we chose to make ourselves not free, right?
Whoa, what a bar. That is true. That is true. We chose to. I mean, you see memes about it all the time, about how like dogs and cats and all these other animals, like they live in nature in the forest. But people decided like, oh, you know what? Why don't we work 9 to 5s
and pay taxes and stuff like that?
And pay taxes and have
everything expensive.
Yeah, that is true. Like all these concepts that we live in are the only people who keep us like accountable are ourselves or other people.
Because I kept thinking of like, I think if there wasn't a government, I feel like eventually we would still create a government. Yeah, I keep thinking that. Like I keep thinking like, I think for us it's just, I guess, a natural thing to kind of just do that. Order, because I kept thinking, what did we watch? The movie?
Which one?
Planet of the Apes?
Planet of the Apes.
And it's like, well, with Caesar, right? He's kind of like the leader. And like to him, everyone kind of respects him because it's like, like he's the one who made them free, right? Yeah. And I was like, I feel like naturally they created their own kind of like government. So it's kind of like, I think it's in a way, it's a little natural that like, if we didn't, and again, how you said, like to your point, like I feel like there's some people who get, I guess, kind of like that power driven. Because I feel like it reminds you just a lot of things, like especially when you think about like Walking Dead, and like it just naturally happens. Yeah, like it just naturally happens because it's like,
it's a cycle.
There needs to be some type of order, or like, because I feel like, there's just really bad people who would take advantage of that. And they'd be like, no, like I want to be the leader of this, and
I think it's instinct.
Yeah.
I think it's like in the way wolves form packs. I think people like innately do that.
Yeah.
I think it's instinct. It reminds me of Neil deGrasse Tyson did like this segment on like transgenderism and like pronouns and stuff, and I thought it was pretty eloquently said. I can't speak for people who identify as that. I'm
Yeah,
cis,
of course.
so,
Yeah.
but he was talking about how the human brain just cannot help itself when it comes to categorizing things. It loves to like, it's just innate. Like it just loves to categorize things. So he was like, that's probably why it's so difficult for people to be like, what do you mean you're not he or her? Like that doesn't make any sense. Like, cause like the people like to just put things in boxes, labels and boxes. So I think it's like that. I think people are probably too smart for their own good.
Yeah.
So they like to like set rules. This is how it works. This is how it makes sense. Because I feel like if it wasn't, you'd probably go crazy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It reminds me, there's also a Family Guy episode where they made like kind of a joke on this, where I think the entire town of like Quahog, they have anarchy.
Yeah.
Where nobody has any rules. I think it's Family Guy or maybe The Simpsons. They all kind of blend together after a while. But they have basically anarchy, and with anarchy comes like chaos. And finally, I think Peter or Mr. Simpson, I don't remember. Yeah,
Homer Simpson.
Homer Simpson. Yeah. He goes up on top of the stage and he talks to all the townspeople, and he's telling them, it's like, we can have anarchy, but we need to make sure that the anarchy is good for everybody. So we're gonna put some people in power so they can make sure that anarchy stays alive and well. And maybe, we can decide who can be in power. We create a system where we vote. And they basically just create a government, but they call it anarchy. Yeah. So I feel like that basically answers the question of like, is it possible to have too much freedom? Yeah, because obviously if we liked freedom, then we would have stayed free.
Yeah.
Yeah. But moving on to the third question, this one's really good because this one's bringing it down a little bit. What role do you think pain and suffering play in personal growth? Because do you think, this is my own question, do you think media and movies and TVs, do you think they romanticize having to go through pain in order to become a better person?
I think that, I don't know if there's an objective answer to this. If there is, I don't think I'm qualified to say it, but I think a lot of people, when it comes to that, myself included, I view it as more like, I wouldn't say a spiritual belief, but more like in that plane of like more a mantra of life. You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a spirituality or like a religious belief.
Yeah.
But I view it as more like
it's almost like a philosophy, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. In my opinion, I think yes. I think you kind of have to suffer and go through things to grow. I think, like I just think growth hurts. So and then to answer your question, you said, does the media romanticize it? Maybe a little, but I think it's I don't know. I think it's in essence true.
Do you think it's possible to grow without pain and suffering? Because I guess like relating it to my own life, I'm like, I guess in terms of personal growth, right? Like unveiling the things in me that I feel like were either hurt or I have to overcome in terms of like the future. I feel like there were certain lessons that I only learned because I learned them the hard way, which just means like I either went through a heartbreak or I made a decision that impacted me negatively, either like academically or holistically, and whatever the sense. I think like you, kind of like how you were saying, I don't know if I can speak for everyone, but I know that for me, I can be stubborn sometimes. And the only way it really gets through to my head is for me to just basically face it like head on, and reality hits me. And that can be very painful and very like include a lot of suffering. And it reminds me, I saw this recent clip. I saw this recent clip of Oprah Winfrey. Yeah. Have you ever heard of when she talks about the whispers?
No.
Have you ever heard of that? So Oprah Winfrey talks about how in life you get what you want out of it by listening to the whispers. And the whispers can be a lot of things. So I'll give you some examples. So let's say you're an alcoholic, right? The whispers is, you wake up the next day, and you sent a bunch of like texts to like either your ex or these people you're interested in, you made a complete fool of yourself. What Oprah Winfrey says is interesting is that when you don't listen to the whispers, they get louder. So a whisper becoming louder is, take the same example, you're an alcoholic, you wake up the next day in a completely different apartment than yours. And you wake up next to somebody who you have no idea who that is, and that you find out later that you slept with. That's a whisper turning into a scream, telling you what you need is to stop drinking. And it was like part of her book, or like part of her, she was saying it like in a seminar. But it goes to show you that you kind of hear like signs of what you need to do. And when you ignore those signs, that's when you go through the pain and suffering. But you could argue that if you listen to the whispers that are always there, you might not need to go through that pain and suffering. But I don't know. For people who are stubborn like me, maybe you do.
I think that's deep. I like that. I think that's cool. 'Cause yeah, I mean, it sucks. Like it really sucks. But I feel like I learn more out of when I fuck up than when I succeed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I learned from my successes. Like I think that's important too. But the lessons don't stick as hard as from when I fuck up. You know. So yeah, I'd say it's like, and I feel like the things I've learned from fucking up have been more impactful. You know, where it's been like, I shouldn't have done that, or I regret that a lot. You know, because I think it's more of a, what's the word? It's just a more visceral feeling than like, just, you know, like when you, you know. So yeah,
it's like when you're a kid and you see like the frying pan, and you're like, oh wow, like look at it, like it's making food, and you touch it with your hand and you burn yourself, and you're like, oh fuck, like that fucking hurt. Never gonna do that again. It's kind of like the same way in life. Yeah, you kind of learn through those things, and obviously it's a complex journey. Yeah. But what about you, Julie? What do you think?
Well, because I keep thinking like, I guess to us it is good because we got the positive outcomes of it from like going through all that pain and suffering. Because I keep thinking like it would be nice to not go through those things, and I feel like we would still learn, and or I wouldn't know because like we've never, I guess, seen that other side of it. Yeah. But that's all I kept thinking about. I just kept thinking like I feel like the reason we can say that is because we got the positive outcome of it all. Definitely. Like I think us going through those hardships and I guess all that pain and suffering, we kind of eventually saw a positive out of it. And I think that's the part that gets us to be able to kind of change, is the fact that we can eventually think about the positive that we got from it. So we learned, right? And that's the positive outcome. We learned. And so then we're now going to grow and think of like what we can do from there, right? It'd be nice to avoid all those things. Yeah. But, and like to still hope that like we don't need to have so much negative to eventually get like a positive. Like it would be nice for it to all just be positive. But I feel like, yeah, I guess like in a way we kind of do have to go through those things to kind of, I guess, get a better, because I guess it's the thing of that they say if there wasn't any bad, there wouldn't be any good. Yeah. So I think, I guess, yeah, in a way.
You're just like, it sucks that you have to.
Yeah. Huh? I feel like it just sucks because I just think of like other people who just go through life really, really bad, you know? And I feel like for them, it's hard to kind of get out of that, like, that space where it's just all negative.
That's so crazy. I was thinking about that yesterday too, because I was kind of comparing people who've had rough lives. And in one side, the person who had a really rough life, they chose, for some reason, maybe something happened in their life, maybe they met an incredible person, but for some reason they chose to rise above like whatever they were raised as and all their obstacles in their life and become something better, and then end up being something better. And then on the other side, some person who went almost the exact same situation, who only became worse, only became more like invested in their toxic behavior. And I was trying to wrap my mind around like why that happens. And I don't think I can possibly answer that, but I just, one thing that I got out of it, of thinking that, is that I think when we see people like that who overcome adversity, it's very easy to then point at all the people who were in similar situations and didn't do that and be like, you see, if he could do it, how come you guys can't do it? Like everybody can do it. But when you really like put those people under a microscope, the people who overcome adversity, I think you really get to see that it's a lot harder, and those people are a lot more unique. It's a lot more uncommon to see those stories.
Yeah.
And so that's just like one of the things that I got kind of out of like having that like conversation and thought process with myself, is that I do think pain and suffering is sometimes very necessary for growth. But I think, like we've discussed before, you can't help somebody who doesn't want to help themselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes, even though a person can hear the whispers and the screams, it's up to them to listen.
Yeah.
And see what the whispers and screams are even saying.
Well, because there's only, like, you as a person, there's only so much that you can do for someone and tell them, like, oh, it'll get better, or like, this is the optimistic side of everything. There's like so much that you can tell someone, and then, but it's up to them to kind of like actually want to do the action of wanting to change.
Well, I mean, but I get what you're getting at though, with like the romanticizing it a bit. I think, I mean, I get what you mean. I think it's like some people don't get out of it. Some people it breaks, because it'll make or break you sometimes, you know.
For sure.
So to be like, it's necessary, you have to go through this, I get it. Like, I get where like saying that can be, you know, I get how that can be misconstrued.
Dangerous.
But I think that's just what makes it like one of those things where it's like I said, I don't know that it's something I can put a flag on. It's more like a philosophy than it is. Like, more leans more towards a spiritual belief than it does, at least for me personally, than it does like a fact of life. Because I there are people who do not make it out of it, you know, and I've seen people like, I guess that's just So I think it's just rough.
With the question of the movies, do you guys think that like people take them too serious nowadays? Where like they're like, oh, this is like super, because I feel like a lot more people are getting more into like being more related to what's going on in movies, that they try to take them more into like seriousness with their own life, you know? Like
obviously to a funnier extent, but the Ryan Gosling.
But I think that's always happened though.
Yeah.
I think that's not new. I mean, the Bible, right? Like, be like, what would Christ do? You know? I think it's just one of those things where it's like, I think for whatever reason, it's innate in people to like, that's me, you know, or to relate to something. Because I think it helps you. Because I don't know. I think hearing a story sometimes, like, I think you mentioned it one time where it's like you watch people cry and it almost feels like you're crying, because it's like, oh, like it helps you let it out. So I think like that. So I don't think it's like, I don't know. I don't think it's that bad. Obviously, you could take it too far, but like you can take anything too far. Yeah. And I don't think it's that new. Yeah. I think it's just,
just piggybacking that. Piggyback.
Yeah.
How do you say that? Did I say that correct?
Piggybacking off of that?
Yeah, piggybacking off of that. I think art has always influenced people. Movies are art. Media is art, unfortunately, sometimes. But it is art, and art impacts people. And I feel like there's a lot of positives to it, because just relating it to the question itself is like, if you're going through a rough time, maybe you'll watch like Spider-Man and you'll be like, you know what? If he can do it, I can do it too. And it's funny, but it's true. I mean, bro, people get so much motivation from watching like movies, and it's cool. I mean, people name even their like kids after like media that they really love. Like Robin Williams named his daughter Zelda after the Zelda games. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of positive influences.
For sure. I had a substitute teacher who named his kid Anakin, like Anakin Skywalker. I think that's cool, you know? So yeah, I get what you mean.
Anakin of all people though? The fucking dude who
I've seen people say it, because isn't the story that he still is the chosen one?
Yeah.
Because he turns back face.
Yeah. So I don't want to talk about Star Wars, please.
Okay. But before
he brought the good and everything, you know?
Yeah.
But before Steve continues, I have a question of my own. ¿Cómo se dice sponsored?
Patrocinado.
Wow.
How
did you know?
I did not read that from my notes.
She remembered it.
I remembered it.
Well, guys, if you haven't caught on, the Todo Chido podcast is now sponsored by Yo Sabo the Game.
Woohoo! Yo Sabo the Game is the new Latino card game for your next game night. You can test out your Spanish, answer trivia, and even win some fun challenges. But better yet, Yo Sabo the Game is a small business that is ran by 3 Mexican Americans, just like this one thing that I listened to on Spotify. Told Chido, who just wanted to practice their Spanish but ended up creating a new fun way to do so. So make sure to check this game out.
Y'all saw us play a few episodes ago, so now it's your chance to play Yo Sabo the game. You can purchase your own copy at yosabodegame.com. And you can also find them on all social media platforms at yosabo_the game. Thank you so much to Yosabo for sponsoring us. We love y'all. It's a fun game, so y'all should check them out. Yes. They're dope as fuck. And all the links will be in the description down below.
Yes, it will.
Okay, so shout out to Yosabo. This will be my last question before we move on. Because I don't want to take up the whole episode. Because I have a habit of kind of doing that. Is happiness a constant state? Or is it something that comes and goes? Wait, no, that's obvious. I feel like it comes and goes. It's obvious. Question answered. If you could have an honest conversation with your future self, what would you ask? Is that one? Does that tickle your guys' fancy?
I feel like it's common.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Can true altruism exist, or all acts of kindness driven by self-interest?
I feel like we kind of answered
Is that kind of like
yeah,
a
we
moral
did.
one?
We kind of did. Yeah, we kind of did. What does it mean? You know what? Fuck you guys. All right. You know what? We're done.
We're done. We're just.
Julie,
done
what did you
with
bring for?
We're done with Stevie's segment.
Yeah.
It was so good, and then it ended so unceremoniously.
This is too many questions.
Yeah.
So. Just kidding.
Okay. What about this one? Does this tickle your fancies? If you guys are not, then we'll move on. Do you believe in the concept of fate or free will? Because honestly, it's pretty complex. Because you could argue that fate is even like the class and the economic like stand that you're born in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, right? Like,
I think,
or even your parents. Like, if your parents had like traumatic behavior, are you fated to be like them because you're so close to them?
Fated? No, she
That's all she heard.
Faded?
Piehead, bro. That's all she heard. What do you think, Brandon? I think we could end off on this one.
Well, because I keep thinking of like places that I am now in life, right? And I feel like I always think of like, I can see the path as to what got me here, right? Which is weird because it's like, so does that mean like,
it was always meant to happen?
Yeah, like, and I think that's what always gets me. Like, I feel like that's always what like confuses me because it's weirdly enough that it is very much like some sort of like energy of like, I am where I'm meant to be, you know? And like, and weirdly enough, like the reason I know that is because I get weird signs where I'm kind of like, everything just kind of aligns, you know?
Yeah.
It's just a feeling like of just things that I see or like certain things that happen. And I'm like, okay, like I know why this happened. Which I don't know. That's why I'm always like.
But does that make you anxious? Like, at least, well, I only say that because I'm projecting. Like, for me, like, it always made me anxious. Because since me and Brandon have known each other since we were kids, I feel like we would always talk about, like, fate and free will when we were younger. Yeah. Which is so funny because we were just little-ass kids. Mm-hmm. But I remember one of the things that I always brought up to Brandon that bothers me about, like, if fate and destiny exist is that I feel anxious that I can't control, like, what happens with my life. I just kind of have to go with the flow. And going with the flow is fun. Yeah. But when you think of life can be so serious. Mm-hmm. And when you have dreams and goals, to think that no matter what you do, you can't like fight the like pull and the strings that are attached to you. It's always gonna end up being like your destiny. Mm-hmm. I feel like that gives me anxiety because I feel like I like having control. Yeah. I like being able to do what I want to do. Yeah. But I get your perspective too, where it's like even me having these thoughts, right? Mm-hmm. If fate exists, this is also fated to happen. Yeah, fated.
I think this question's always a little loaded for me because it's like I feel like if there is an answer for me, I'm nowhere near old enough to be able to be like that's the way, you know. Mm-hmm. I'll answer it, but that's just usually my thing. Okay. Yeah. I think for me, the way I see it now, or the way not even the way I see it, the way I that makes me most comfortable, I guess, is the way Forrest Gump answers it. I think that movie's a lot more insightful than people give it credit for. Because
the white feather, bro?
Yeah, it's where he says at the end, I think it's both. Because I think people miss that about the life is like a box of chocolates thing, where the point of the moral of the story is that like there's things in life that are predetermined for you, whether it's the family you're born into, the economic class you're born into, the physical disadvantages you do have or don't have, shit like that you can't change. Like let's say you're born without a leg, your fate is to not have a leg. That's unchangeable. But there's also freedom for you to be able to make the most out of it or make the least out of it, you know? And I think, for me, I think the movie paints it really well, where it's like, it shows Lieutenant Dan, Jenny, and Forrest, right? Jenny's obsessed with like carving her own path and doing all this thing, and it doesn't work out for her. Yeah. Lieutenant Dan is obsessed with his fate, but when his fate doesn't align with what he has, he gives up in life. Forrest was born like a cripple. He didn't have, his back was all fucked up and he was mentally disabled, right? But he made the most out of it, right? And he becomes the most successful. He becomes everything Lieutenant Dan and Jenny wanted to be because he made the most out of what he had. I think there's something to be said about that personally, you know? I think it's a bit of both, like in that movie. I hope that's not a cop-out, but I like that.
No, I feel like I get that. And like, for me, I always keep thinking, especially of like where I am right now in life. And I always think of that thing of like, I don't know if it's things happen for a reason or things just are meant for you in a way. Yeah. Like for me right now, looking for a job, right? There's certain jobs that I really like and then I don't get them. I feel like I always think of like the after of it. I'm like, okay, I'm hurt that I didn't get the job. But I'm also like, I think of, if I would have gotten this, it would have taken me my time away from certain things that I wanted to do with myself. And I feel like that's why sometimes I get into that mindset that things weren't meant for me. I get things that are really meant for me to have because it'll help me with life. And I think that's why sometimes it is that I am kind of choosing my own path, but at the same time I'm not, because like somebody denied me, right? But at the same time I'm still choosing my own path of like, I'm going to go and do this other things instead. And I think that's when it eventually becomes my path, right? Which is why I guess it is to your like thing that you're saying, is that it is kind of both, where it's kind of like your fate is to go, it's kind of is leading you somewhere. And I think for me, I just always been able to easily adapt to things, where I'm like, wherever life takes me, I'm going to adapt to it. Like I'm going to love it or I'm going to hate it. And like, I think I always just try to see the good and the bad of things, of like, if I get a job and I don't like it, then I at least experienced it and I know that I don't like it. So I don't want to go in that path. So I'll go to a different direction. So I think it is like you do get a choice, you know, sometimes. And I don't think it makes me anxious. I think it just, overall, I think the way I've kind of have been living with like, especially experiencing jobs and just how I want to create my career, because I never knew what I wanted to be, like when I was younger, or now I still don't know what I want to do with life. But I feel like with that, it's made me a lot more of being open to just new experiences overall, and just seeing where kind of life takes me, because I don't even know what I want, you know. So how is it that like I'm destined or like fated to do something if I don't even know what that is myself, you know? And I think that's why it's good to just always have an open mind of where life can take you, and you know, where everything can go, because at the end, like, you know, everything's cool.
I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming.
But yeah,
like it's kind of like what Nana said, right? Rejection is redirection. And then also I think what you guys were saying is beautifully said. I feel like it eased my anxiety for sure. I mean, I think I've gotten better as I've gotten older to like enjoy the flow of life. But I gotta stop living like Lieutenant Dan. I gotta start living like Forrest Gump. Right.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like especially for people who do have a set thing that they want to do with life, just keep going for it. You know, I think it's still very much that if you're applying for a job that you really, really want to work for, and like the company still doesn't hire you, there's other companies that can, and then from there they can lift you to the degree where you want to be. It may not have been the path that you wanted, but I feel like if you still work for what you want, you'll get it in the end, you know?
Yeah. Wow. I think that's a good place to end it. Yeah. I feel like that made me feel like everything's, I don't know, there's a word for it. Everything's going to be okay. You know?
He misled, bro.
I know. You see how I swerved you? I swerved the expectations.
I thought, you know.
That was beautifully said from both of you. You guys touched me in ways I've never been touched.
Pause.
Weird.
Pause. No, okay. Julie, what'd you bring for this week's episode?
All right. So have you guys heard of who Yahritza y Su Esencia is?
No.
So basically, they're just like a small. They're a band. They're siblings, so it's Yahritza and then Su Esencia, which is her two older brothers. And I guess they're going through like these. They're basically getting canceled right now. And so basically, what's happening with them is that they are getting canceled because they criticize Mexico. So essentially, what they did is that they've been going on interviews saying like that they don't like how I guess Mexico is. They say that it's like too loud and like they kind of don't like the food. So originally they're from Washington. I think it's called like Yakima, Washington or something.
Yakima, Washington.
Yeah.
Wow.
And from what I kind of know, it's a very small city. And they kind of grew up with like their parents going and to the fields, just working on the fields mostly. And then they kind of blew up. They blew up last year, around like springtime. That's where they kind of blew up. And now they're going on interviews and stuff. And so they've been going to like Mexico because they're doing like a whole bunch of tours and stuff. And yeah, so basically they're always saying like, oh, that they don't like Mexico. They don't like their food. I don't know if you guys have seen like the memes where they're like, oh, they like chicken from Washington or something like that.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
Because they basically, I feel like they remind me a lot of like just kids who are like, they don't like spicy food. Like they just eat like, they rather just eat like chicken and like they don't. Because the other guy was, the other brother was like, oh, it's because like I'm very sensitive, so like that's why I don't eat like spicy food or anything.
Yeah.
So basically, yeah. And then there was this one video. They were in Mexico and they were getting food, and basically in Mexico usually they give you like your soda in a bag. And in the video it's the brother panning to Yahritza and it's she's making like a stank face. And people started saying like, oh, she's criticizing like the way people live over there. And like that she like hates Mexico. And she says she doesn't hate Mexico. She says like Mexico's fine. She doesn't like Mexico City. And so people have been like criticizing them, saying that they should get canceled because like, how is it they're being judgy that all of a sudden they're up there and they're judging people, right?
That's weird.
Yeah. I just thought it was really weird.
That's it though? That's all they did?
Yeah. It's just them like basically like
just being a little careless.
Yeah.
Yeah, being a little careless, I guess, with the way they speak about Mexico.
So
people are mad because they're claiming that they're basically not like real authentic Mexicans.
Yeah.
That yet they occupy like a Mexican American. Well, they occupy a Mexican space with their band.
And they're being disrespectful.
Yeah, and that they're being disrespectful. I find it interesting because they're all young kids.
How old?
Yeah. Yaritza's the youngest one, so she's 16.
Bruh.
Yeah.
What?
I feel like everybody knew Mexican American kids that like who were like didn't like tacos, like had plain tacos.
Age.
Yeah, like
yeah.
But like the context, is she making the disgusted face like at the soda, or is she making it like just because the camera's on her?
I think, well, she eventually explained that it was because the camera was on her. Yeah. That she said that it's a regular thing. They're siblings. They're going out. And she said that her brother's always recording her. So, like, you know, it's like if you were to record me and you like pan to me and I like do that.
Yeah, you do that. So yeah.
Like I do like the little like grr face. And so that's what she explained, that in the video, she was like, oh, like he's always recording me and like doing stuff. So like it was just in the moment, like he just did it and I did it. And it so happened that we were at the stand and I was holding the bag. Like, and it just like, that's just how it happened. And then the older brother was like, yeah, like they had never been here before. Like it was their first time. And I really wanted to record their first time getting like a soda in a bag and like all that stuff. So I was like, I wanted to record the moment. And she always makes those faces at me. So it kind of just came out that like she was doing it because she was kind of disgusted or something by like what she was getting.
I don't know. I guess for me, I'm just like, She's like a little kid. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
like, I'm not saying like you can be a child or like be young and do zero wrong. Like, I'm not saying you can do anything and your age automatically absolves you.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's some instances where your age is indicative of your immaturity. And there's some things that you just too young to understand the impact of, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like in this case that makes me feel that way, where it's like, I feel like the way you're talking about it, I believe she's kind of being like, just because of the camera, because you do that, like, you know?
Yeah,
like,
you do that.
like, you know? So I feel like I feel
Yeah.
like people are making a bigger deal of it. I don't know the context, so if there is other stuff that she is being a little disrespectful,
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, you shouldn't be disrespectful. That's wrong, and she should educate herself or whatever.
Yeah.
But I also don't think it's like super crazy, because it's
Yeah.
like, I mean, she's young. I feel like she's not mature enough to understand the like.
At least from the things that I've read, right? So they're from, I think that's how you say, Yakima, Washington.
Yeah.
They live in a very, like, what it seems like it's just all fields. They've never been to a city outside of that. And I feel like going to Mexico City, where it's a big city, I feel like they got just a lot of culture shock. And I think from there, it just, they've never been to Mexico either. Like, both of their parents are immigrants. The oldest brother, which is the one who recorded them, he's also undocumented.
Yeah.
And so what had happened too was that he actually got deported. So when they blew up, so during the time that they blew up, he got deported. They told him that he said that they gave him 2 days to leave. And then he packed for a week because he thought he had a work visa, but they still like kicked him out once I'm guessing it expired or something.
Yeah.
And he thought that he was only going to be gone for a week. He was gone for 7 months.
Oh, damn.
And so when they were in Mexico, they were visiting the brother. That's why they were there. And that was like the first time they had ever been there. And I think to them, it was just like a culture shock that they were just like, they also, I mean, they grew up in Washington, who knows how the food is like over there, how they grew up. It was kind of like, they just grew up very differently from here and Mexico, right? Like, it's very different. The food's different. The spices are different. Whatever they use, the ingredients, you know? And so, like, they were just saying that, like, they've never been. So, like, they don't know what life is like over there, and it's very different. And I think that's what was happening with them, is that, like, they just got a culture shock overall.
Yeah, I guess.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
I just find it interesting that, like, I don't understand why we always police, like, people's Mexicanness. Like, why do we rank people, and, like, why do some people feel more superior for being more attached to their culture? Because I personally feel like there's a difference between Mexican culture and Mexican American culture.
Yeah.
Both very valid, very beautiful cultures. But for some reason, we try to, like, poke always one more than the other.
Yeah.
And what I guess, like, really hurts me is that the story of immigrants coming to America, it's very, like, it's notorious with Mexicans crossing the border and coming here. And I feel like with that, there's, like, a lot of, like, alienation with either the immigrants themselves or their kids. And with that comes, like, a lot of loneliness and a lot of, like, disconnect from what you feel like is your culture, because you're born here and you're technically an American, but you inherit all the, like, cultural aspects of where your family came from. And I feel like it's so wrong to kind of, like, bash these kids just because they're not, like, full-blown Mexican, because they were born here. And I feel like we only make them more lonely and more alienated if we continue to, like, criticize them. Yeah, obviously, maybe they should have chose, like, better ways to, like, talk about this type of, like, stuff. But they're literal kids. And if what we want from them is to be more connected with the culture, shitting on them only makes them feel more disconnected and only creates people who feel like them, like, a greater divide. And then we wonder, like, why are these Chicanos, why are these Mexican American kids, like, so disconnected from the culture? It's because we do that. We create this hierarchy that if you got to be super, super Mexican in order to even matter, in order to even be, like, accepted by the community. And that's so fucked up, because, like, a majority of people who are proud of their culture and the pride of, like, being a descendant from people from Mexico, like, they're Americans and they can't help but, like, be like, affected by the environment that they're born into. And I feel like, how can you like put so much like pressure on these like guys who are taking this space and representing our culture? Like, I feel like I understand criticism, but I feel like this is just straight up like, to me, it's like showing that you're somehow superior. Like it goes back to like the insecurity that we've talked about like a long time ago, about how like people like compare Mexicanness because they feel insecure about their own identity. And that's where I'm like, that's so hypocritical, because you should understand that how it feels to feel like you don't belong to a specific community.
Yeah.
And yet, like, we continue to do it to like the future generations. Like you said, she cried, right?
Yeah, she was, because I guess they did like an interview, and I think it was at her house. I didn't really watch the full interview, but I saw TikToks, and she like cried about it because she was like, she's like, it's not that like we hate our culture. It's just like, bro. It's just like, this is just how we grew up. You know, we grew up in like a very like, she even says like, we grew up poor. Like, our parents couldn't even afford to even buy us sometimes like beans. Like, it was just like, we grew up very different than what people grew up, the way people grew up in Mexico. And she's like, and it's like, she basically even said like, I don't get, how is it that I have to give back to a country that I didn't grow up in?
Yeah.
Like, how is it that I have to do that? I was born here. I grew up in the United States. Like, to me, at least in my head, it doesn't make sense why I have to give back to Mexico if I never stepped foot there in her whole life until like recently, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that was like, that was an interesting thing that she brought up, that it was kind of like, why is she giving back to a place where she kind of, you know, she didn't really like grow up in. She grew up here, right? So she would rather like kind of start giving back to her community here than rather than in Mexico, right? Which I get it. She kind of like, her roots, her background is from there, but her home and everything she knows is here, right?
Yeah. I feel like there's a spectrum of like where you are in like being a Mexican to a Mexican American. And I feel like no matter where you are on that spectrum, it doesn't invalidate your identity. I feel like no matter where you are on that spectrum, you're as valid to claim your pride and your heritage as any other person. I feel like it's so fucked up, bro. Like, I genuinely think it's so fucked up to like alienate these kids and make them feel even worse about something that they're probably already insecure about. Yeah. Because I feel like I imagine if they're making music that's in like in this genre, it's because they want that connection. Yeah. And like, for them to be shunned even more, I feel like that's so fucked up, man. Like, that just like, I genuinely just think that Mexican Americans have just always suffered from like an identity crisis. Yeah. And it sucks that like the people who are really like trying to kind of like reconnect with the community, it's always faced with such backlash of like, no, you're not a real fucking Mexican. And that's so backwards. Yeah. Because then how are we ever, what do those kids lie? Like, where do the Mexican Americans lie? Because like a lot of Mexican Americans who are here in the United States will probably call themselves just Mexican. But they're not. They're really not. Yeah. And they're not even. They don't even know that they have an identity crisis. Yeah. And like, in order for them to feel better, they like push down other people. I feel like that just sounds like bullying to me. Yeah. Like, it doesn't sound like you're criticizing them for valid reasons. You're just bullying a couple kids. And how does that make you feel better?
Yeah. Even in the video, she says that, why is it that Mexicans don't support other Mexicans? Like, she's even like crying about it in the video, and she says that. She's like, why is it that like they don't want to support us? Like what is it that like they did so wrong? And like, the other thing that I was reading an article. So there's also like, well, because they're, again, perspective is they're Mexican Americans. Again, they're kids. They're kind of like the no Sabo kids. Yeah. And so when they even speak like Spanish, they still say like, they have an accent, and they still say like, oh, like this, or like like that. So like, they don't, I guess, speak properly, but they still know a good amount of it. Yeah. Most of their interviews were like in Spanish, and they try their best. The one that they made fun of them was like the chicken in Washington. Yeah. Because he didn't know how to say chicken in Spanish. So he said chicken in Washington or something like that. Or he just said chicken.
Bro, because you see what I mean? Like, if anybody should know what it feels like to struggle with the language of a country that you're not from, it should be Mexican Americans. Yeah. But yet, it's so, like, fast that they're the first ones to be like, oh, my God, like, he's struggling to speak Spanish. It's It's like, you mean like how when people move to a different country, like in the United States, and they struggle to speak English? Like, bro, like really wrap your mind around it. Like, how does this benefit anybody?
Yeah.
Especially because, like, I guess it hits different because I saw people bring up that it's also very, like, there's a lot of, like, subliminal, like, anti-indigeneity in, like, the criticism of them.
So I was going to say that because there's also, like, a piñata maker in, I think, Tamaulipas who made, like, figurines of them, them being piñatas, and they basically put them in like really dark skin, like they put them in dark skin colors, and then they put a nopal on their heads, just to say, like, to make like hateful caricatures of them, to kind of like also make indigenous people in Mexico like
up,
very malicious, because they were like, because they also say that oftentimes it aims at Mexicans who perceive to deny their heritage. So they're like, like they're not. Yeah, like to go back to like, they're not Mexican because they're not learning Spanish. They're not learning the actual food that's from Mexico. Like, they're not real Mexicans because of that. But just a little bit of background of a little bit more of Yahritza and who she kind of got inspired by. She actually gets inspired by Chalino. Like, that's her inspiration because her dad kind of grew up always listening to him. So that's kind of like the music and like why she fell in love with like music and wanting to do a lot more of like the Mexican style of everything. And so to them, it was more like, and I don't know, I think that's why to me, I was also a little more as to why I wanted to bring this up, because it's kind of like the attack on them just doesn't, like, I get it, like what they said maybe wasn't right, but it's just like the overall criticism that goes deeper in that of like how they're being made fun of. And like,
I don't know. I feel like because I guess I didn't understand it at first, but the way you guys paint it, it feels more like the criticism was just an excuse to be fucked up to them. Like, you know, I feel like, I guess I see what the problem is with what they said, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. People act like you never said anything stupid when you were a teenager.
Yeah.
I would have said something way worse, way more ignorant, way more stupid, way more knuckleheaded. I feel like I don't think I started to understand shit until like college.
Yeah.
When I was like, maybe like I get it now, you know? So to be like, oh my gosh, these people are so malicious and stuff. I feel like she's 16.
Yeah.
Come on. I feel like, and even the stuff that you're telling me, I'm struggling a little to see like what the big deal is, like with the soda thing. And then you said she's from a small town. I mean, like, that's like if you're from a small town, you come to LA and you're like, I don't like how loud it is. I mean, it's a busy city, dude.
Yeah.
Vanessa comes from the IE and she talks about how she doesn't like how busy it is here.
Yeah.
I feel like that's valid. I feel like that's probably what she meant.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like the big hustle bustle, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think I'm assuming she probably didn't mean like, I hate it because there's Mexicans here.
Yeah.
Why would that even make any sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they had asked her, the question was, how is Mexico treating you? And she was like, I really like it. It's cool. I just don't like, basically saying, I don't like how loud it is.
Yeah.
And then the siblings were like, I don't like the food. The food is just really different from like what we've grown up eating.
Yeah.
And then that's when they were just talking about the food and how like the other one was like, I can't handle like I'm a little sensitive. So like the spices are too much for me here. So then it was just them saying that. Like that's all they said. That's all they said.
Preference of food.
Yeah.
I feel like that's
all they said. And they were doing all that in Spanish.
Yeah.
So like I would understand that maybe to them in their head, even too, it was kind of like translating everything to themselves was like, this is how I should say it. And maybe it came out wrong in a way. And maybe they didn't mean it.
You're allowed to not like food. I feel like,
yeah.
I don't know. Like, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
I feel like I know people who like just plain tacos.
Yeah.
Like nothing on it. I feel like, so that's just
I
preference,
think it's just crazy how like that, right? Like people who say a taco, right? And you like it plain.
Yeah.
Like that's already the criticism of like, why don't you like cebolla and cilantro? Like, or like, why don't you put salsa in it? Like you're like, if you're a Mexican, right, getting a plain taco, you're already criticized for that, right?
Sounds very fragile.
But it's just like, bro, what?
That sounds very fragile.
But that's what I wanted to say is that like the anti-indigeneity sentiments is what shows me that it's not a criticism about their Mexican identity. It's more just people remedying their own self-crisis. It's just people making remedies for their own like identity crisis of being a Mexican American. It's like, like I may be a Mexican American, I might not be a true Mexican, but at least I'm a better Mexican than those people. Yeah, you know, and that's so fucked up because it's just people projecting their own insecurities.
Yeah. And I think what's crazy is that I would see other TikToks because I was trying to go into it of like what the criticism is, what's going on with it. Are they really that bad? And a lot of the TikToks that would always kind of like stitch them, it's like, oh, you guys shouldn't be mean to, I guess, this country because you guys are getting the influence from them. So you guys should treat them with respect. And then some people are like, they are the ones who are basically listening to your music, so you should respect them.
How is that?
And I just thought, and I don't know, I just thought that was weird in the fact that like it's like, I get that they love the culture and stuff, but it's like now they're being disrespected. Yeah, you know.
But I'm telling you, like, go ahead.
I just don't get how that's being mean. Like, I feel like I'm genuinely struggling. Like, if I haven't seen the interview, but if it's how you're saying, I'm struggling to see what the like issue is. Like, what's mean about that? Like, what's disrespectful about not liking?
I guess because they're just disrespecting the culture.
But like, I don't get how that's disrespectful. Like, I don't get what's
because it's
like having an opinion is disrespecting the culture.
Well, I mean, like, what some people just don't like certain foods.
Bro, like, and I don't mean to put like anybody on blast, but like this friend who I have who is a Mexican born and raised, lives there their whole life. They don't like cilantro and onion on their tacos, and they're born and raised and currently live in Mexico. It goes to show you that, like, bro, people in Mexico have those preferences that they do, and they don't get the criticism. And you know why? It's because I'm telling you, it's just a bunch of Mexican Americans who have like this, for some reason, standard of what it means to be a real Mexican, because people are insecure about their identity and they feel as though they need to put rules and regulations in order for them to feel better about their own like identity. And bro, it's really pissing me off. Like, I feel like my blood pressure is like increasing, bro. Like, I feel like my heart racing.
No, yeah. Well, because I mean, for me, I just really feel for them because, well, I mean, her especially because she's the youngest one, right? To her, the other one, the oldest one, I think is like 25, and then I think the other one is probably like 18. So it's like she's the one who's getting like the more criticism because it's her name, right? Yeah. It's Yahritza y Su Esencia, and like it's just like, I don't know. I just really feel for them because I feel like this is basically everyone else who's kind of grown up being Mexican American, always getting criticized for the way that you speak Spanish, being criticized for the way you eat your food, that like you're not Mexican because you don't eat it this way or something like that. It just like I think that's why I wanted to bring it up, because of the fact that I feel like a lot of people go through those things of just criticism, and they get it the most because of the fact that they're huge right now. Yeah. And like I feel a lot for them, and who knows, maybe in real they are mean or something. Yeah. But I don't know that. This is just what I'm seeing from like the internet, and I just think the way that they're being mean to them, especially being, I guess, racist towards them because of the fact that they're a little dark-skinned, is also like, bro, now you guys are taking it to a different level of being critical. I feel like
that's ironic. Like, you're disrespecting the culture. Let me be racist to you. That'll teach you a lesson.
Yeah.
Like, what? I feel like, I don't know. That seems pretty dumb.
Yeah, to me, when I first read that they were making like actual like
are they dark skinned?
They're not just dark skinned. They have a lot of indigenous features. Yeah. If you look at Yahritza, she has like you would just know. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, their families are originally, I think, from Michoacan. But yeah, they're fairly like dark skinned. Okay. But yeah, like they have a lot of you can tell from them.
Yeah, they don't have the traditional European look to them. Like if you put Canelo next to them, nothing alike, bro.
Yeah. So it was just like, I don't know. I feel like they're really getting bullied for something. Yeah. That's like,
I have yet to see people like actually like defend them. I think it's just a mob mentality of like,
everybody's get them.
Yeah, I'm a real Mexican. Yeah, I know, right? They're not real Mexican, huh? They're bums.
I've seen a lot of just the negative part, and that's why I was like, okay, I'm gonna look into this and see what's actually happening.
I feel like, I don't know. I feel like even if they were saying something a little worse, I feel like they're kids. I feel like I don't know. What a coward's move, in my opinion, to be like, let's punch down on these kids. What? I don't know.
And I feel like it's interesting because it is like, compared to like Peso Pluma, right?
Yeah.
And he's actually from Mexico. Like he's getting a lot more like adored because of that fact. And then you have these kids who are Mexican American who are getting so much criticism because of the fact that maybe they aren't, I guess, full on Mexican. Yeah. And I don't know. I feel more for them because I can relate more to them, you know? I can relate more to the situation of like always hearing the criticism. because it was always, I always heard the criticism of like, oh, I can't be Mexican because I wasn't born there. But I'm not from here because like my parents aren't from here.
Yeah.
So it was always that same thing where it was just like I was always fighting with two places and always feeling like, then where do I belong?
Yeah.
Like if I'm not from Mexico, then like I'm not gonna live there. But I was born here, but they don't accept me here.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like,
yeah, bro. That's why like and you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
You're not alone. And I don't even mean that as like me. Like I mean like so many people sharing that experience. That's the Chicano experience.
Yeah.
That's the Mexican American experience, is that feeling like you don't belong in either side. And despite being surrounded, because our entire lives, we're surrounded constantly by like our heritage, but yet we still feel like we're outsiders.
Yeah.
And I imagine for people on the lighter side of the spectrum, like them, where they grew up in a small town, probably around maybe no other Latinos or Mexicans, I feel like, bro, like, I can't begin to imagine how they must feel and to be immediately rejected. Like, come on, bro. Like, show some empathy. Like, a lot of you should know what that feels like, to feel like you don't feel completely connected to your own community.
yeah,
And I'm like, bro, like, this is all to say they have my support, bro. They have my support.
yeah.
I like the
and
music
I feel like I also just support them because they are Mexican American and they're trying to make it in an industry that still isn't very accepting of, you know, just them and just people coming up, you know. So I was kind of like, okay, like I need to look into what's happening. If it does come out that they are, I guess, evil or bad people, then I'll be like, okay,
yeah.
like,
I'll actually resend and eat my own. I'll literally make a cake of everything I said in this episode, so I can physically eat my own words.
yeah. So,
Okay.
But yeah, I was just like, I don't know. I feel like it's just been like super blown up, at least on my side of everything. And I'm kind of like, bro, it just sucks because I'm like,
no, I'm glad you brought it up.
I'm like, they're kids, like, you know. And I also think of because I've seen other I guess up and coming like Mexican American artists, and when they get interviewed, and especially when they're getting interviewed in like Spanish or something, like they struggle. And like people make fun of them for it, and I'm kind of like, bro, like let them be, like they grew up. You need to. I feel like people just need to consider the way that they grew up, which is like they grew up in a space where they were always told they need to learn English, so they are distancing a little bit of themselves from their culture, but they're not rejecting it fully. It's just like we just have to adapt to a different environment, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's just like for all of us, that it was just like. We hear the stories too of like parents who are like, they didn't want to teach their kids Spanish because like they didn't want to go through the same criticisms that they kind of grew up when they moved here, you know. And it's like I feel like people need to have more understanding of that, and it just I
also think people don't realize that most Mexican Americans are no Sabo kids, and they're not even aware of it. I feel like it's a lot rarer to find a Mexican American who actually speaks perfect grammatical Spanish. I feel like if you really step back and listen to everybody here who speaks Spanish, they obviously make mistakes that aren't like indicative of the Spanish you hear in Mexico. Yeah. So I feel like that in itself is another thing to add to the conversation.
You're never gonna speak better Spanish or a better language than someone who speaks it only, like you know, like.
And I guarantee you, if you find somebody who does, you won't find a lot of people like that. Most Mexican Americans are no Sabo kids. You know, even if they think that they're not, there's no way you're speaking that perfect Spanish because it's so rare.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. You know,
I offer them my blessing, bro. Yeah. I offer them my blessing.
I was like, y'all haters.
Y'all haters.
Y'all haters.
Support
they do have good music though. Y'all should check them out.
Yeah, support our own.
Yeah,
bro.
I've never heard of them today.
As if we're like bigger than them or something.
Like
we're putting everybody on.
We're slight homies. We're Mexican Americans. Together,
They got a lot of love for me. I'll look out for them.
Check them out.
Yeah, I don't know much about them. I've only heard about them today. So
amazing first impression.
Well, then you, Brandon, you should.
Amazing first impression. I mean, I guess I just feel like I don't know. My hot take is I don't get why people care so much about what celebrities think. Like what they said was not even that bad, but like even if they did say something bad, I don't get attaching a celebrity's words to like validation. You know what I mean? Like just because a celebrity likes that doesn't mean like, you know, I hate that we hold celebrities to such a high pedestal. Like, so what? You're an actor. You're a singer. Like, if you're talking about like music, I'll take your word for it. But the fuck do you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know, I don't know. This is me though.
That's just me though.
Yeah,
I don't know
though.
though.
LOL.
I don't know though. LOL.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
You got something else for us, Julie? Or is
No, that
bye?
was it.
Brandon, what
Brandon,
did
what you
you
got?
bring to the table this week to send us home?
Yeah, I guess so, right? Well, if you haven't noticed, today, the day that we're filming, is Kobe Day. It's 8/24, so rest in peace to the Mamba. So I don't know. I just kind of want to talk about Kobe a little bit. I don't have like a specific like
Guideline?
Yeah, I don't have a specific like. Oh, did you know that Kobe did this for
Yeah.
Mexico? You know,
When did you realize that you were in love with Kobe?
When did I realize when I was in love with Kobe?
Wait, can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to add because I do think actually Kobe holds a lot of relevancy when it comes to at least talking about stuff like around Latino and Mexican topics. In Los Angeles specifically, there's in the 80s and the 90s, there was kind of like this like turmoil between the Mexicans and the Black Americans who were here. And a lot of people actually point to Kobe as being one of the bridges to like make the communities come together, because you saw a lot of Mexican Americans actually idealize a black man in Kobe because he played for the Lakers. And people bring up a lot when he passed away that he had a huge impact here in Los Angeles specifically, because he was able to bring in all communities of Los Angeles to come to Laker games, to root for him. When he brought home championships, everybody celebrated together, and nobody thought of his race. Nobody thought of where he came from. He was just Kobe. He was the Laker. He was our hero.
Mm-hmm.
And people bring that up. I'm not making that shit up on the fly. People bring that up as he married a Mexican woman. You know, like he was literally like a bridge to like bring people together. And I feel like that's like something that I wanted to bring up just off the bat, because
I didn't know that.
yeah. So his daughters that are here are both like a product of the two communities coming together, because they're Mexican and they're black. So yeah, a little beautiful thing that I don't know if you guys. I mean, it's all there. You just put it together, and you're like, that's true.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is really cool. I didn't know that.
So when did you fall in love with
I don't remember. I just was always a basketball fan, and then obviously when I'd see him play, I was like, that's the guy.
That's
you know.
the guy.
I saw him play once live for my birthday, but I remember it, but I don't remember it. It's like, you know how when you have memories as a kid, and they start to feel like dreams.
Yeah.
You're like, did that happen? Like I can't quite remember that.
That's me every day.
Yeah. So yeah.
That's me every day.
But I don't know. I was watching this interesting documentary about him, and it's not like a professional documentary. It's like a YouTube documentary. It's called The Legend of Kobe Bryant. It's a really like well-made documentary. You guys should watch it. I don't know. I thought it was interesting. It just examines his character. And it talks about how like, you know, the feud with Shaq and how he was kind of very, you know, the famous thing about how he didn't respect anybody who worked as hard as him, or like how he felt that like he wouldn't pass the ball to somebody that he felt wasn't putting in 100%. And it's kind of like this storyline of how he kind of learns to trust his fellow players. And I thought that was a really nice story. That's mostly it, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, yeah. Because I guess from both of y'all and like what Stevie was saying, I feel like I remember even like the impact that his death had.
Yeah.
And I feel like it generally was like the whole city was sad. And like I feel like you can feel that. And I think it is to go back to like I think he just really had a big impact, not only just in basketball, but just like overall and everything with like culture and stuff. And like I feel like, and I understand why he's very well respected, and I think it's just crazy to always think about that, like he's not here anymore and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just like, damn, like
That
he
came
did
out
a
of
lot,
nowhere, bro.
yeah, he did a lot too, you know.
Yeah, he did. He won an Oscar. That was crazy. Yeah,
I was with this guy when the news came out, bro.
Yeah,
of
we
his
were
passing.
on set. Yeah, I don't want to talk about this.
You don't tell his death, his his legacy and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just too bummy for me.
I get that.
They announced his statue unveiling.
Yeah,
I think that's really cool. It's on 2/8/24 next year, so they included his daughter in it. And I think that's really nice.
Do you think his daughter's gonna be in the statue?
I mean, the date.
Would it be fucked up if they don't, or would it be fucked up if they do?
I don't think it'd be fucked up either way. I mean, I don't know. I feel like they probably will include a.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I feel like the Lakers are very kind with him, and they're very. I respect the organization. I'm a fan. I think the organization is a cool organization. Yeah, I respect that.
Bro, do you live with Mamba mentality?
I don't know. Do you think it's toxic?
I do. No, I think so.
What does that mean?
Mama mentality. You know that super like
you don't know
always grind type thing.
Okay.
Always be in the gym. Always be or
like
whatever.
always give it not just give it 100%. Give it 110%, bro.
Leave everything out on the floor.
Yeah. Well, but he brings up if it's toxic because I mean, Kobe. People bring up that Kobe probably could have played longer if he didn't do that.
Yeah.
If he let his body rest.
Because he would still play like when he was injured, right?
And stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like people talk about, well, because they talk about in that documentary, right, where like he drove out Shaq, he drove out Phil Jackson, he drove out basically everybody, and they just talk about how like they probably could have won more if he had trusted his teammates a little more, if he wasn't like, I'm gonna do everything. Yeah. There's this quote in the documentary that I thought was kind of like cool, where he was like, Kobe's only fault was that he fell in love with the team sport, you know, and he wasn't very much like a team guy, you know. So I think. I don't know. I guess applying that back to that, like, if that mentality is toxic, I don't know.
I think it worked for Kobe as good as it could have. Like, but I don't think that mentality actually works for most people.
Yeah.
I think it's actually very toxic. I think he's just a rare occurrence where it worked. And I would even go so far as to say is that if he had learned and changed his mentality a little bit, he could have had even more success.
Yeah,
which is saying something because he already had. You could argue he's the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
But I don't know ball like that, so I won't pretend to like know.
That's one thing I'll use our platform for that I've always found unbelievably weird is that all of a sudden he's not like top 10. I remember growing up, he was top 2, top 3, top 5 at most. I remember growing up, people being like, Tim Duncan's not even in the same conversation as Kobe. I remember being like, it's Jordan, it's Kobe, then it's LeBron. And I don't agree. For me, LeBron's the GOAT, but I don't know.
Not while he's wearing the Kobe jersey.
But to leave Kobe off top 10, to even leave him off top 5 for me is
bro, take
insane.
it off and give it to Julie right now.
The Clippers fan? Come on, get out
bro,
of here.
what?
These two are Clippers fans.
And
there's
so
a Clippers
what?
hand right there.
So what?
I can't believe you're a Clippers fan.
I'm a California fan.
A California fan? So you're a Golden State Warriors fan. That's insane.
Sacramento Kings. You know.
That's insane. Sacramento Kings?
The Light the Beam?
Light the Beam. That is pretty cool. That is pretty cool.
You'll give him that?
We should have stole that.
I should have stole that.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking cool.
You should have came up with that.
Yeah, the
you
beam
didn't.
team. Light the beam. I think that's really cool. Yeah.
You think Kobe would have like coached? Do you think he would have been like Phil Jackson in this bitch?
I don't think he would have coached the NBA. He probably would have coached Gianna's team.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I mean, he did coach your team.
Oh, my bad. I heard Giannis. My bad.
No. Giannis. Why would he coach Giannis?
I don't know.
No, but
I was like, Giannis? He was in combos to coach the Bucks?
No. I don't think he would have. I don't think I mean, maybe they could have tried, but I don't think he would have coached the NBA. It seemed like he wanted
Bro, but it is funny thinking of Kobe's legacy because even when you would throw trash like
Kobe
into the bin.
Yeah, they even show Undertaker when he does it.
Oh yeah,
Kobe.
Even AD did it once. He was like Kobe.
Yeah,
so he was he was a huge inspiration.
What do you mean? I mean, I just think like I don't know. It's weird to me how people forget how big of a like
impact he made,
character he was, because it really was. After Jordan, it was him. Like
you saw NBA 2K.
Yeah. He was in NBA 2K. He was in everything.
No,
like,
I mean you saw in NBA 2K they named the eras. Did you see it?
Yeah, the Kobe era. Right.
It was it's the Magic versus Bird era, the Jordan era, then the Kobe era, then the LeBron era.
Yeah.
So they literally said it. Like, no, this is Kobe's era. I know. I think it's like, I guess, bro, are kids really born that fast? They immediately just like 3 years and they're already like, Kobe, what? He wasn't that good. That's crazy.
My hot take opinion on it is that I think people only say that because of his passing to sound like edgy, to sound like cool. Like, oh, this guy actually knows ball because he's not afraid to be ruthless about it. Like, you know, I feel like that's the only reason people say that. But I think that's so dumb because I feel like I remember, like, I wasn't born yesterday. I remember how big he was and how impactful he was. Like, there's that commercial he had with Messi on the plane, or the one where he jumps over like
the car.
The car, yeah. I don't know.
Was that real?
No, I thought it was when I was a kid though.
I'm gonna be delusional and believe that it was real. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do miss Kobe. Kobe was cool.
Do you think because of his death, it also tainted LeBron's legacy?
In what way?
In like the fact that they're like he's not the GOAT.
No, I don't think so.
Kobe was retired already.
No, I don't think so. I just think it's weird how all of a sudden everybody's like, Kobe didn't do shit. Like, what are you talking about? I don't know. I just think that's weird. I've never.
Is that really? Is that what people are saying now? That he didn't
People
do
say
anything?
he's not even top 10. People say he's overrated.
He was just like a regular player.
Like he was Joe Schmo. And I think it's weird because people will still call him the closest thing to Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, he's the closest thing to the greatest player ever, but he's not top 10. Like, what? That doesn't even make any sense in that sentence. Like, how does that make any sense? But I digress.
We're basketball fans for those of you who don't know.
Yeah.
We're all three of us like basketball. I don't know if we've ever talked about it on here.
I know. We're always watching. Well, Stevie's always watching basketball videos, and I'm always watching them with him.
Yeah, I like eat my like food and put my YouTube
And I'm
on.
like,
It's like basketball
what?
highlights.
I don't know. Well, especially, I guess I'll give a little bit, but especially working in like sports and especially basketball. And me being a small person, that shit is crazy because these foods are huge. And I remember one time I was at work and I was like, God damn. I was like, these foods are like athletic as fuck. Like, if you see like their legs and the way that they like, they have a basketball and it looks like a little like baseball to them. I don't know. I was just like, bro.
It looks like a baseball.
Bro, they could palm your head.
That's true.
They're like huge. And it's just like to see how athletic they are and like how like just overall basketball and how big it is and just like everything that goes into them trying to be where they are now within the NBA. I always think it's just crazy.
I also think it's like a unique sport in a way that you would think other sports would have this, but it's one of the few sports you can like play alone and like get for the most part the gist of it. Like you can't really play baseball alone. You can't really play soccer alone because there's like aspects of it's like, well, you need like people on base, you need a pitcher, you need all this stuff.
Yeah.
Or like football, you can't really like throw it to yourself and run, you know?
You can't do like 1v1s either.
Yeah, which is, I think, side note, is kind of weird that so many sports, there's not really a lot of sports that you can just play by yourself. But I don't know. I guess.
But you know what? That makes me think. I think that's why also a lot of basketball players have that like lone wolf mentality because you can technically play by yourself.
Yeah. Or you could play one-on-one.
Yeah.
LeBron basically played by himself when he was in the Cavs.
Mm-hmm.
It was basically him versus a whole team.
But yeah.
What'd you say, bro?
Nothing.
Oh, okay. I thought I heard something. Also, side note, Julie, have you ever heard that thing? This is such a weird thing to bring up at the end of the episode. But have you ever heard that thing about how girls think that it's cringe when girls call themselves small?
Small?
Yeah.
Why is it like pick me?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a girl. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Girls think it's cringe to call themselves small?
Yeah. That when a girl is like, oh, I'm so small and petite, that girls think it's like cringe.
I don't know. Is that cringe, Julie?
I don't know.
You've never heard of that?
No.
I have heard that, but like, why?
I don't know. Maybe
Yeah, I was like, I guess I wanted to ask you, like, why?
Maybe it's because they're like, I don't
I'm
know.
baby.
I feel like it is the pick me part probably.
Oh, like I'm such a petite damn.
Yeah, I'm so small or some shit.
I'm a little baby.
Is it like the
I need a big, strong man.
But I feel like the only reason I
change
say
my diaper.
I feel like the reason I usually say that a lot is because I'm usually around dudes and everyone's always taller than me, and especially girls. I feel
But
like
you are small,
I feel like
though.
a lot of girls are usually taller than me either way. Like I only know like maybe like 3 other girls that are like my height.
I guess women.
So I don't know.
I don't know.
Is it like the equivalent of a guy like walking around like he has giant lats?
I hate when dudes do that. That's so cringe.
So
That is cringe.
Is it the same thing?
I don't know. I'm not a girl. I can't. tell you.
No, but I'm just saying like.
What do you
'cause
mean? What do you mean?
never
You know
seen
when
a guy
guys walk
around
up like
that?
the gorilla stance?
The
Like,
gorillas.
Like they walk around like their lats are like huge. Like, you know, they walk around like they're extremely buff
Yeah.
even when they're not.
Interesting. Never noticed.
You never seen that?
No.
But you know how that's cringe? How like dudes
Yeah.
try to act like they're
Yeah,
huge.
well,
Or
'cause
like a dude standing.
it's like an intimidation thing, or it's to like see like I'm so big and strong.
I think it's probably the same thing.
Oh, you know it is probably the same thing because
I
it's
think
like the inverse.
Yeah, it's the inverse.
It
It's like,
I'm
probably
so
is.
small and petite.
I'm so
Oh,
large.
I've
and
just-
Bro,
charged, yeah.
a small petite girl and a big lats dude.
Yeah.
The most cringe couple you could find.
That's a match
Okay.
made in heaven, bro.
A match made in heaven.
I
Yeah.
guess so. Should I
Yeah.
stop saying that I'm a small person?
It just reminded me of that. I don't know if you
Yeah,
should.
but you are small though.
Am I? Am I not?
But are you the type to be like, I'm just so small and helpless.
No.
I'm so scared.
I'm a
of the
strong,
world.
independent woman.
So
Yeah.
say you're big and strong.
I'm next to a basketball player. I'm pretty small.
next to
Yeah,
like,
next to anybody next to a basketball player is pretty small.
I know, right? But
If you're small, I'm tiny.
But
She's doing it right now. I'm
she did do it.
I'm petite and
What?
The wind will blow
my
me away.
oh no,
Will
I'm
it
so small
not?
and fragile.
Wind will blow
No,
me
there's
away.
times when
Will
I
it
do
not?
feel
She's
that.
doing it.
There's times when you feel the wind.
No, there was one time. There was one time in Mexico. It was so fucking windy.
Oh, yeah, I know
it
what
was
you're talking
so
about, yeah.
fucking windy. I felt like I was floating at one point because it was so windy. I'm
I
telling
know, no,
you,
bro,
it was
she's
windy.
dead ass.
It was windy as fuck.
Because it's like
the
the,
wind
elevation.
Here, if y'all think the wind here was strong, no.
And she-
Mexico wind.
and she's
Crazy.
like, especially for a petite and small girl. For like, no, but I mean, she's dead ass.
And then you say like, but a big Lat's guy.
But a
like
big
you.
Latin guy like me,
Yeah.
I was like a brick wall.
Yeah, you should have held on to him. You wouldn't have flown away.
All right, well, I think this is a good place to
Yeah.
end it. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I think it was a really good episode, one of my favorites.
Yeah. Before we end it off, let me just give a shout out to our patrons. Shout out to Daniel Villanueva. Shout out to Catfriend. Shout out to Jada Chicano. Shout out to Yoel, of course. We appreciate your patronage. If you guys want a shout out and a hand on the wall, remember the link is in our bio. We always appreciate a new patron. But we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
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 Bye.